ready for the time of your life at Circa Resort and Casino, Las Vegas's newest destination for fun, featuring the world's biggest poolside tailgate party with 3 levels of action, 6 pools, and a 143-foot screen. The fun is always on deck with all the games all year long. Stadium Swim, located in downtown Las Vegas on Fremont Street. Book the time of your life today at circalasvegas.com.
Hey, Forrest here. Nothing like getting paid. And with ICCU's mobile app, I can deposit checks or accept Zelle payments so the money hits my account fast. I just wish there was an app for mowing the rest of these lawns. Pow day. Dude, let's go.
RowPaint.com is going all in this season with an all-star lineup. It's Coach Leon Rice and Andy Rowe.
Oh no. Want to just paint my house?
When I want Boise State to win, I trust Coach Rice to lead the Broncos to victory.
And when I want the best painting and garage floor coating, I trust RowPaint.com to get that job done right.
This is Bronco Nation News Live. The best interviews, the most informed opinions, the latest breaking news, all from the top Boise State insiders. Today's broadcast is coming from the Cutwater Spirits Canned Cocktail Studios. Check out one of their more than 30 flavors of pre-mixed premium cocktails at your local gas station or grocery store. Cutwater Canned Cocktails is perfect for your next game day tailgate party. Now, here's 4-time NSMA Idaho Sports Writer of the Year, BJ Rains, with another edition of Bronco Nation News Live.
Hey, how we doing, Boise State fans? Welcome on into a RowPaint.com Thursday edition here. We're both sporting our RowPaint.com hats. Mike Prater, KTIK 95.3 The Ticket. BJ Rains with you, Bronco Nation News. Mike, it's Thursday. We've already got a Mike Prater column posted. It's a good start to the day. How we doing, sir?
It's doing great, BJ. How you doing, my friend? It is a good start to the day. Everybody's happy in Boise State, Bill, and I've actually written the happy, positive column that people have been waiting for 30 years around here. But it's pretty good to be a Boise State football fan or a basketball fan these days. All is well down there on Broadway.
And I think your column kind of fits in perfectly to the topics we want to hit on today, football and basketball and the positive excitement, momentum. We'll get to that in just a second here, Mike. I do want to say that tomorrow morning on Bronco Nation News, we do have a, I would call it fairly big announcement, cool announcement. Mike Prater doesn't even know about this yet, but Bronco Nation News, let's just say making more history. We're taking Bronco Nation News to the next level in terms of what we're doing, and we got a cool little announcement coming tomorrow about something happening next week. So make sure you tune in tomorrow, 9 a.m. with Jay Tust and I, and our special guest who is going to help us announce what we got going on next week. So excited about that. I think it's going to be cool, as I said, as we continue to cross new barriers. Mike Prater with Bronco Nation News, and continue to make history, I guess you can say, in terms of, live pre and post game shows, live morning shows, a lot of the things we're doing involving former coaches. And we're going to add something else to the list of what Bronco Nation News is going to do. Do you have any, are you intrigued at all by this?
Heck yeah, I'm intrigued. My mind is swirling. I want to break this story. I got to dig deep into my Rolodex and my source book to see if I can find a source who can help me break this story. You're right. I have no idea. And, Maybe keep it that way. I'll tune in tomorrow morning and get all surprised just like everybody else. But nice job, BJ. Nicely done. Way to grow this BNN thing. And it's just, we're all happy to just kind of be here and love to see the growth. And Boise State's growing all the time. BNN's growing with it. And it's kind of a cool ride right now for Boise State.
And hopefully this is the first of what would be a couple cool announcements where this is kind of a test, try out what next week, what's going to happen. And then we'll see in the future where it leads to. But I was told specifically I was demanded by Mike Prater to not tell him stuff or he'll leak it out by mistake. So I couldn't tell you before the show what it was, or I was worried that it might leak out early. But excited.
Loose lips. I tend to have very loose lips. Back in the Statesman days, I said, don't tell me off the record stuff because I'll go on the radio and leak it. And sometimes that happens. But don't tell Prater stuff like that.
All right, hey, 2 weeks from tomorrow, we will be at Circa Resort and Casino as we get into our basketball talk here. Mike Prater, hope the, eating healthy and getting to the gym. It's a pool party 2 weeks from tomorrow, Mike. I hope you're in tip-top pool shape here.
I don't know if I'm in tip-top pool shape, but I'm grinding. I'm working on it. I put in a little extra time in the gym this morning and got myself ready to go. I'm working on it. It's I got a goal for the next 2 weeks. I think you're doing well too. You're looking great. And I guarantee you though, if I even lost 50 pounds over the next 2 weeks, which obviously will not happen, I'm trying to lose 5. There will be no shirt taking off. So we'll show up in shorts, maybe a little sun tank top or something, and have some fun by the pool and get after it. But I'm definitely looking forward to that trip. It's getting close, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, we'll be doing the shows in 13 days. Yesterday, 2 weeks from yesterday, will be the first show there. 3 days of shows. We got a lot of cool stuff planned, and we're gonna have some free raffles and things going on out there, and hopefully get fans involved in both my show and your show, and just kind of have fun out there all day by the pool, and then hopefully Boise State playing in the semifinals that night. And again, this will be Friday the 15th. We'll be out there all day. Email me, rains@bronconationnews.com. It's like a $40 cover charge. We're waiving that. Mike Prater is taking it out of his next month's pay. So if you want to go to the pool party, we will we'll pay your entry. Just email me at rains@bronconationnews.com. And Mike Prater, the basketball team, I'm going to start there because of that, because the game coming up on Saturday, I think it's 51-49, 50-50 if you want to start Dirk Koetter basketball. They're both massive, developments and exciting things to talk about. But just because I also want to talk about the Mountain West football schedule coming out today, I want to pair that with Dirk Koetter. So let's start with basketball and then move to football. But 4 straight wins, 4 20-plus point wins. They're blowing teams out, and I know it's the bottom 4 teams in the standings, but 30-point wins are 30-point wins, and you saw even like some of the other teams in this league struggling to beat some of these teams. Air Force is losing to New Mexico. New Mexico's losing to Air Force. Utah State should have lost to Fresno. That game went to overtime and was a close game, and so some of these other teams are having a little bit of trouble. Colorado State went to overtime with Air Force at Colorado State, and you look up and average margin of victory is like 29 points or something the last 4 games. Again, I know it's the bottom teams in the standings, but Boise State has done what they had to do the last 2 weeks. They've got a lot of momentum here for these final 3 games.
Yeah, it's been very impressive. And championship teams win the games that they're supposed to win. And, sometimes that's a 1-point victory, and that's okay. But if you're beating people by 15 to 25 points and doing it on a regular basis, I don't care who they're beating on the standings. We're approaching March, and every game matters. But, I know they're tied with Utah State, and I know we're going to kind of decipher and dive into these next couple of games. I don't know if Boise State has enough mojo to pull off a conference championship or regular season one just based on the schedule. They got 3 tough ones here. If they win the next 3 games, this might be one of the most impressive stretches of Boise State basketball I've ever witnessed. And even if they lose one, it's still really, really impressive. Utah State's got a really easy schedule down the stretch. Boise State's going to be tested. Again, yep. I don't really care too much. It would be nice to win that regular season. But Boise State, to me, over these next 3 games, is going to come out way more prepared for that NCAA or for that Mountain West tournament in Vegas than Utah State, who can kind of sleepwalk its way into that. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But I'm really, really happy with where Boise State is right now. They're in really nice shape.
Yeah, you'd probably just want to go, 2-1 if you can over the final 3 stretch. Ideally, you win your 2 home games and then kind of just take your chances down there in San Diego. And I believe you were the one that asked Leon Rice the question, right, a couple of weeks ago about what's more important and what's kind of the bigger goal, winning a regular season title versus, getting your team set up for March. What do you remember about his response there? He kind of said it depends on the team and the year.
Yeah, but he also had a fascinating argument, and this dates all the way back. My train thought dates all the way back to last season. Like if I could throw a Steelheads conversation in here real quick about hockey in terms of chasing the regular season, chasing records, trying to clinch this historic regular season, and making sure you're right going into the postseason. And they chased that record last year, put a lot of time and mental effort and physical effort into that, and ran a deep playoff run, but then got swept in the championship finals. Obviously, your ultimate goal here is to win a championship. And when we asked Leon Rice, or when I asked Leon Rice that question a couple of weeks ago. His answer to me was fascinating. He talked about his days at Gonzaga when they first started going to like Madison Square Garden and playing Duke and North Carolina and going to Chicago and going to all these big tournaments. And then they would come back to the Mountain or to the West Coast Conference, and they would be playing San Francisco in a high school gym with 300 people. And that's no way to motivate your football team. So what Leon Rice did was they had this emphasis that regular season conference championships was the most important thing in the program. They had every trophy removed from the complex, and then they put the conference championship trophies right in the locker room so everybody could come in. And that was the incentive. And I thought that was a mental game that was really cool, because when you play Duke in Madison Square Garden and then you go play San Francisco in front of a high school gym that's empty, that's tough. But if you put that incentive in front of these guys, that's really cool. And I think Boise State's found the right balance for that in terms of chasing a conference championship, getting ready for the postseason. We'll see what happens over these next couple of weeks. But Leon Rice speaks from experience, and I love the way he approached that when he was at Gonzaga.
And I know in your column, Mike, you talk about Leon Rice, how his new raise will kick in after the season. He's going to go up to $1 million and be the, the first $1 million basketball coach, in Boise State history. And kind of quietly with that win against Air Force, that was their 20th win of the season. That gives him 3 straight 20-win seasons. He's been here 14 years, Mike Prater. 11 of the 14 years, they've won at least 20 games. I think they only had like 10 20-win seasons all, in history before he even got there. I know the 0-9 is looming out there. I know that's always going to be the fuel for some of the detractors and stuff, but another 20-win season, 3 in a row, going back to the NCAA tournament in all likelihood for the 3rd straight season. You can have your small issues. I got a buddy that hates it. They never go 2 for 1 at the end of the first half. And I know there's guys that have their certain things. You mentioned the 0-9. I know that's a big one this year that you're hopefully can put that to bed. But it is getting really hard for folks to find much negative to say when it comes to Leon Rice. The program continues to roll. 20 wins. And again, I don't know with the transfer portal, with guys going pro, what's going to happen next year. But on paper, you could have Chibuzo Abo, Tyson Degenhart, Omar Stanley, Roddy Anderson, 4 starters back next year. You could have, you lose Max Rice and Cam Martin, but you could have Meadow, Keene, and then, by the way, they could go get somebody else in the transfer portal too. And, Pearson Carmichael, their high school recruit, scored 50 points the other night. I mean, again, not saying they're all for sure going to be back. You never know what's going to happen. But on paper, Mike, looks like this thing's not going to slow down anytime soon.
Boise State basketball is in a position that it's never been in before. It's in the best position. It's in the best shape that it's ever been under its entire existence as Boise State basketball. You could probably have a pretty good debate. Is this the greatest team in Boise State basketball? You can put it on the list, and I'm with you. I think next year will be even better. If you're only losing Max and Martin, and then you can bring in everybody you just talked about, throw in a Chris Lockett, and kind of get better next year and hope, cross your fingers that the transfer portal is kind to you, it can get even better next year. So there may be some teams in the past that could compete with this specific team, but there's no doubt, and it's not even debatable. I can't even find a lot of flaws here. And, I like to beat up on Leon Rice as much as possible, but this program right now is clearly in the best shape that it's ever been in the existence of Boise State basketball. I think the future is even bright. It's not like this is loaded up for one season and one big run. He's building a program for the future, and sometimes it's slow, and sometimes it is frustrating, and sometimes I want to see faster, quicker growth, but it's trending in the right direction. And right now, Boise State basketball has really got it going on. So that $1 million raise, well, it's not a $1 million raise. It's a $50,000 raise, but joining the $1 million club, it's absolutely worth it. I never in a million years would have thought that the football coach was making $1.1 million and the basketball coach was making $1 million. That's a pretty cool stat right there.
Yeah, I mean, and I know we've had that discussion too, where we feel like the football coach should be making more at Boise State, but it's hard. It'd be hard to argue right now if Leon made more than Spencer, just given on 14 years what he's done here. It shows you that the fact that it's even that close, I guess, shows you. I mean, when I got here, I think Leon Rice was making like $300,000 or $400,000. I mean, it shows you the rise in basketball and what they've done here. And another thing that I saw, and you had it in your column as well, Mike, but I mean, they announced yesterday the game on Saturday is already sold out. I mean, you're talking about a 3 days, 72 hours before tip-off, a game being sold out. I don't know about you, but I can never, I mean, they don't sell out a ton of games as it is. I can't remember in my 10 or 11 years here, a game already being sold out 3 days early. We'll see if the students actually show up to make it a, quote, sellout. A lot of times the student section still ends up being a little empty up there on the third deck, but New Mexico, Saturday, 6 o'clock. I think part of this, as you also mentioned in your column, Mike, is that the Tuesday game's at 9 o'clock. So for some folks, this is kind of their last chance to see it. It's with kids and stuff. Can't make a 9 p.m. game work, and that is kind of a bummer, and I get it. So I suspect Saturday, sell out, the team rolling, the end, a conference championship in sight, going to the NCAA tournament in sight. I would suspect Saturday to be as electric of an atmosphere as there's been all season. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And we got to this point based on 4 blowouts, as I said. It seems like just yesterday, Mike, some fans, folks freaking out a little bit after they lost the Colorado State, Utah State road games. I believe you were fairly positive still. I was fairly positive. Hey, we saw this kind of stretch coming, and it's easier said than done, but they went 4-0, blowout wins, and now here we are as some of the other teams in the league keep beating up on each other. What for you these last 2 weeks is kind of this resurgence here? What has been the most impressive, or what has stood out to you about this 4-game winning streak here?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a lot, but Tyson Degenhardt's certainly on a roll, and this guy's just putting his basketball team on his back, and he's the ultimate competitor, the ultimate teammate, the ultimate perfect human being. And I know I like to poke fun at him sometimes just because he's such a good-natured kid, but we all love Tyson Degenhardt and what he represents. Not only would you want him on your basketball team, you'd want him in your family, you'd want him in your friend circle, and you want him in your group. And it's really cool to see Tyson Degenhardt, who's going to just come back next year and be a superstar more so than he is right now. More impressively, though, it's the bench, and it's the way Leon Rice, for me, is tweaking the bench. And he's not making wholesale changes, and he's not making consistent changes. It's like in-game changes, and maybe it's a little bit of a experiment here, a little bit of an experiment there, and just trying to squeeze every ounce of lemon he can out of that, or every ounce of juice he can out of that lemon as he tries to get into this season, and making sure that his players are fresh. So it seems like this basketball team can go 8 or 9 deep now if it has to. I don't think it's an issue. And even going back to last year, and Leon Rice has always been really good at this. I've wanted to kind of dive into this. It's nerdy, and maybe you know the answer. It's analytical and kind of weird, but even dating back to like the Creighton days, in terms of winning the scheduling game in the offseason and setting your basketball team up with the best chance you can and playing the game, playing the rules of the game, playing the NIT game, playing the RPI game, whatever the game is. And beating Creighton a few years ago certainly got them into the tournament. And now they have a bigger picture of scheduling. And those early season schedule and those losses where a lot of people were panicking and saying so much for a super team, so much for a super team. Well, even I didn't panic then, because you could see that this basketball team was good, and it's getting better every day. So the scheduling, the growth of Tyson Degenhardt, and the way this coaching staff is using the bench, I'm loving it right now.
Yeah, Mike Burns does the scheduling, so our guy Burns deserves a lot of credit for that. And they do have a formula, and if they just would have won the Washington State game or one of those other non-conference games, I think that people would have viewed the non-conference schedule a lot differently in terms of, you challenge yourself, but you lost a lot of the quote, some of those quote bigger games. But they beat St. Mary's on a neutral court. And again, the reason they did that, Mike Prater, again, a scheduling thing, they played that game in Idaho Falls instead of in Boise because St. Mary's only had to be number 50 in the net ranking instead of number 30 to make it a quad 1 game. Now they're up to like number 15 right now. It probably would end up being quad 1 anyway, but there's just things that come into factors like that, terms to kind of play the game on the net rankings. And even a team like San Francisco, at the time, it was kind of like, San Francisco coming in for a Sunday home game. Okay. But you look up and San Francisco is like top 55 in the net right now. And some North Texas, some of these teams that maybe don't have the name cachet, but you look up and North Texas is top 75 in the net, and that's a quad 2 game. And so even some of the quote smaller, non-conference games, and then you throw in the tournaments they played, going to Clemson. And going to Clemson was huge, Mike, because not only are they like top 30, but you get Clemson back in Boise next season. So you're already working on your schedule for next season with an ACC team coming in. So, it's funny, Mike, because all the teams, and I'm kind of rambling, but the other schools like Utah State, Nevada, New Mexico, for the most part, just beat up on nobodies in the non-conference and had higher rankings and better stats and all that. Well, now when they lose a game or they don't play as well, They don't see that, Boise State has just shot up the rankings the last couple of weeks by beating, Air Force and some of these teams. And I think part of that is because you're starting to get the credit for those early season games that even you lost, and the schedule you played earlier in the year, the net balances out by the end of the season. Come Selection Sunday, it all balances out. And that schedule's paid off. Boise State up to number 26 in the net ranking. I mean, Mike, we're not talking about Boise State, being on the bubble. We're talking about Boise State fighting for a number 6 or 7 seed here if they can win a couple of these games. I think Boise State is in a great position. All the fans of the other teams that I kind of went back and forth with on social media when I was saying I thought Boise State was in a better position than people realize, that's starting to play out, because you look at the quad 1 wins, you look at the computer metrics, like Boise State is in a really, really good spot. And I think come Selection Sunday is going to be in a better spot than a lot of these Mountain West teams that all year thought they were the better position. Boise State's making a late season run here in the metrics and in the scheduling. And I think they got a chance if they win a couple of these games to have the highest seed they've ever had in the tournament.
I love the metrics, and they're certainly working for Boise State, but I can't be a hypocrite and sit here and not complain. BJ, what's going on with Colorado State? Why are the metrics, and I know they had a nice schedule early on, but they've lost 3 of 4, and their overall picture just is not looking good. How do we get Colorado State out of there? I mean, not all the way out, but are they still top 30?
Yeah, they are 33 at Ken Palm, and again, they've lost close games to good teams. I mean, they lost by 2 to New Mexico on the road. They lost at UNLV by 6, and they lost at home to a good Nevada team by 3. So the way the metrics look at it, a lot of their losses were close losses, and so there is certainly flaws in the system, Mike. I don't love some of this net ranking stuff and how it takes margin of victory into consideration and all this. I mean, it's which it doesn't. It takes offensive and defensive efficiencies, which is basically the same thing. And again, against Air Force, Boise State still had like 3 starters in with 3 minutes left, and part of that is because a 31-point win is much better than a 21-point win. And so, it stinks, but it's where we're at right now. And Leon Rice, the last 2 weeks, literally could not have drawn it up any better, Mike Prater. You wanted to go 4-0, but they won all 4 games by at least 20 points. And they saw their net ranking go up like 25 spots over the last 2 weeks just by beating the 4 worst teams in the beating the 4 worst teams in the conference by 20 plus literally might have taken them from a 10 seed to an 8 seed. Like, it's crazy just what 4 games like that can do. And now Boise State's in a position where they don't have any, quote, bad losses left. Like, that's why I think they're in a good spot. Like, obviously you want to win at least one of these 3. I think I don't think you'd like to go 0-3 going into the conference tournament, but if you can just get 1, I think that pretty much makes you a lock for the tournament. And if you get 2, like I said, I think you're in a great spot, but now you're not worried about, you're not worried about the bubble, in my opinion. You're worried about how high can your seed get. I think number 8 seed was the highest Boise State's ever been when they played against Memphis 2 years ago. Yep. I've seen Joe Lenardi's bracket before the Air Force game, already had him as an 8 seed. So I think that 6 or 7, if they can go on a run here, is certainly possible. And Mike, one of the other detractors of one of the Leon Rice era detractors has been fading down the stretch. And again, you can, say what you want. I know it's the bottom teams in the standings, but it certainly looks like at this point, this team is getting better and improving and ascending here down the stretch, which is nice to see.
Absolutely. And the big test now is these next 3 games. Actually, the next, 4 games. I need to see Boise State dominate its way into the semifinals. I'd like to see them win a semifinal. I don't really, the championship would be nice, but it certainly isn't necessary. The ultimate goal is the NCAA tournament. And there's really 2 bugaboos left in Boise State football and basketball, and winning that NCAA tournament is something you got to get rid of. In football, it's getting a quarterback drafted into the NFL. Those are the 2 things that have happened that need to happen for these 2 programs in terms of just the big dark cloud hanging over there. So if they can go on a nice run to finish up these 3 games, and you're right, you don't want to go 0-3, but 1-2 or 2-1's perfectly fine. And then certainly get to the Mountain West semifinals and put in a good show there. That's what I talked about in my column on that Friday night in Vegas. That's the magic marker for me in terms of getting into the semifinals, making yourself comfortable, building up that seed as much as you can. Hopefully you can win that semifinal game and then just roll the dice and see what happens. They might be the best team in all this conference right now, and that'd be cool if they could win a regular season championship, which I think Utah State will win the regular season championship just based on the schedule. But if you could pull off the tournament, that would be spectacular. If they win the tournament, BJ, and go 2-1 in these final regular season games, I think they will break that number 8 seed record, probably a number 7.
Yeah, we'll see it. Again, it's not done. They still got to take care of business here. I wouldn't call them 100% lock. I mean, if you lose your final 3 and then lose in the first game of the tournament, I don't know if that's enough to get them in. So you'd like to win 1 or 2. You'd like to win both the home games, really. Just win the home games, and then I feel like you're kind of golden going down to San Diego State with nothing to lose in the final regular season game. As Jordan says, Leon Rice detractors are now on the endangered species list. They've been pretty quiet pretty lately of late, but let's see. Bill says, if they're a lock for the big dance by they go to the tournament, is it the best thing to play 3 in a row or maybe lose one of those games, get a little more rest before the tournament? Another one would be, Mike, would you rather be an 8 or 9 or have a little tougher matchup maybe, but be in Salt Lake City or in Spokane, or maybe have to go to Brooklyn but have a better chance to win? I mean, there's the way that the tournament works too. There's always differences, I guess, in terms of what's more important, location versus path to possibly win a game or two. That's fun stuff to have to worry about the next couple of weeks here.
Yeah.
And we'll let that play out. But Selection Sunday, I think 3 weeks, 2 weeks from
March 17th, I think, is that St. Patrick's Day?
Is it 2 weeks from Sunday? We're barely 2 weeks away. We're what, 16, 17 days from knowing the bracket.
Yeah, I can't wait. And I the travel part, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's Spokane or Salt Lake would be great. I mean, and certainly some fans would jump on board with that. That'd be cool. But I would want to avoid anything that requires long travel. I mean, all the way back to the East Coast would really kind of suck. After that, anything I think would probably be okay. But yeah, if we can get to Spokane or Salt Lake, that'd be pretty cool, not only for the fans, but, I know Sports Talk will try to be there. I know you'll be there no matter where they end up. And I can't wait for Selection Sunday. This is going to be a lot of fun.
And if you're the 8-9 seed, which right now is what's looking like, but could change, Arizona's going to be in Salt Lake. So you have to have an 8-9 in Salt Lake to play them in the second round. And then Memphis is where the closest one to Houston, I believe. So Memphis will have an 8-9. Brooklyn, I believe, will have an 8-9 with UConn. And then Purdue is going to go to Indianapolis. So Indianapolis would have an 8-9 as well. Likely would be the 4 if you want to start to look at possible spots. And then it gets crazy there with everything else. But big news this week with Dirk Koetter, the Mountain West football schedule also coming out today, Mike. Let's switch our attention for a few minutes to football, and we'll do that in 90 seconds here on Bronco Nation News. All Bronco Nation News broadcasts come from the Cutwater Spirits Canned Cocktail Studios. Check out one of their more than 30 flavors of pre-mix premium cocktails at your local gas station or grocery store. Cutwater Spirits, perfect for your next game day tailgate party. Our title sponsor is rowpaint.com. For all your commercial, industrial, residential painting needs, check out rowpaint.com. Don't forget about their concrete coatings. Transform that ugly concrete slab on your back patio in your garage in just one day. Contact rowpaint.com for a free estimate today. The official paint and coatings company of Boise State Athletics, and our title sponsor at Bronco Nation News is rowpaint.com. Idaho Central Credit Union's been helping members achieve financial success for more than 80 years. There's an ICCU branch on almost every corner, but the closest is in your pocket with free eBranch mobile and online banking. See why more than 500,000 members love ICCU, and join 1 in 4 Idahoans by making the switch today at ICCU.com. Since 1984, Ridley's Family Markets has prided itself on being a hometown food and drug store that employed value members of the local community. Ridley's Family Markets has 13 locations in the state of Idaho and many more in the surrounding states. Download the new Ridley's app to your smartphone, get savings up to 40% off at the checkout line, and find a location near you at shopridleys.com. Former Bronco Matt Bauscher is once again the number 1 ranked realtor in the Treasure Valley. No home is too big or too small for Matt and his team. Let them fulfill all your real estate needs at BauscherRealEstate.com. All right, you can read Mike Prater's column at BroncoNationNews.com if you are a paying subscriber. The column just got posted. Mike, half the column was basketball, half the column was football, and kind of just the excitement of this department. If you're a Boise State fan, the 2 biggest premier sports and everything they've got going for them here moving forward, and it's everything from the spring game to George Holani on Saturday in the combine and trying to get him drafted, and the NCAA tournament for basketball, and then football going into next season with all the excitement and the hype. I mean, if you're a Boise State fan, and hopefully you're subscribed to BNN. If you're not, you need to, because there's a lot of exciting things here happening over the next month and moving forward for this department.
Boise State athletics, I mean, this is kind of I don't want to say a golden time, but it really kind of is right now. And it's just, for football, it's just the offseason. And we need to kind of pump the brakes, myself included, on the football. But they've crushed the offseason. The offseason to the point where I said this football team is now a super team. This is the super team that Leon Rice wanted and probably has right now based on the way they're playing. So, it kind of starts with the fact that Boise State has these 2 super teams. One of them is in the midst of doing its business. One of them has a lot to prove still, but there's so much hype and potential and excitement going on with this basketball team and football team, and Dirk Koetter coming back. This guy just absolutely stinks at retirement. He's terrible at retirement. And now all of a sudden he's coming back making about $400,000 a year for a 9-month gig to lead this. And I just think at the end of the day, all those shiny new toys were just too irresistible for him. He's got an ego. He knows he's really good. And he says, I'd like to take those shiny new toys and apply them to my life for the next 9 months and see what I can do with them. And Spencer Danielson had a fit. It seems like it's going to work here. And I was surprised. I try to keep in touch with Dirk as much as possible. And think that I can kind of understand where he's going to do and what he's going to do. And this one caught me off guard. Once again, my 0% comment it kind of bit me in the ass again because I didn't think he would come back. I thought the dude was retired forever, but he cannot resist a challenge. And who can resist all these shiny new toys that Spencer Danielson has put together?
I think he was like at the basketball game having a beer like 3 or 4 days earlier, just hanging out. And then next thing you know, he's the OC again. So it is pretty crazy how that works out. But, for this offense, for this season, what they needed, I don't know if you could have found much of a better fit, Mike, for right now. I think the fact that they're, saying it's only going to be for 1 year and how they, frame this. I believe next Thursday is going to be some media availability to kind of preview spring practice, which will start that following Monday. And I think that they're going to have hopefully Dirk and a lot of the other coaches available next Thursday. So we'll get more information on how they spin this. But I am curious how, it said in the release and all this 1 year deal, 2024. They're going to make this pretty public that he's only here for this season, and then they're going to try to either groom somebody internally to hire, which is what it sounds like from I've heard, whether it's Matt Miller or Nate Potter, or what. But just kind of with the whole recruiting aspect of this. I mean, last time he was here, he did nothing with recruiting. When they went recruiting, he went to McCall and played golf and drank Coors Light for the weekend. Like he told us about that. I'll be very curious now this whole season. I mean, is he going to be same thing, just coach the offense, do nothing else, and you're done when the season's over, and it's just a little bit longer than last year? Well, I'm going to be curious what his role is, and then how they spin this publicly. It is a little, I won't say odd, but it's just kind of unique here that they're admitting this is only for 1 year. But as I've said, Mike, hey, just because they would have signed Mike Sanford to a 3-year deal or signed somebody else to a 3 or 4 year deal, like nothing is guaranteed in this game after 1 year anyway. So at least they're just coming out and making it public.
Yeah, and I don't find anything odd about this at all. I mean, because college football is odd and college football is changing the rules, and college football, I mean, I said a month ago when this position came up and we were talking about what's going to be next for Boise State and its offensive coordinator, or at least after Bush left, I said, just get a rent-a-coach for 9 months. That's all I care about. Rent-a-coach. And I took a beating not only on this show, but on Idaho Sports Talk. Somebody, called the stupidest thing I've ever said. Prater, you're an idiot. Why would we do that? That's college football today, guys. It's one season at a time. And sometimes it's not even one season at a time. It's 1 month, 1 week, 1 day. And that's the crazy part of college football right now. So everything that Spencer Danielson and Jeremiah Dickey have done is to try to build up for this season. And I don't think they're really looking beyond that. So 2024 is a special opportunity. I know they want to get to the CFP. That's why Andy Avalos was fired in November, not because of the opportunity in front of them, but they wanted to be in the best position they possibly could. And all of a sudden, a massive sense of urgency, a frenzied offseason, and all these bells and whistles are clicking and coming together. It's okay to rent a coach for 9 months, guys. It really is, especially when you got Malachi Nelson. And, maybe he's going to be gone. What if he explodes and leaves after one season? He's got the coach, he's got the opportunity, he's got the system, and everything's going to be okay. It's just college football today, and it's okay. There's nobody sticking around these 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 year contracts. I'm tired of them. And I don't care if anybody just gets 9 month contracts from here on out. So I know every single coach at Boise State's under a 2-year contract, except for Spencer, and Dirk's got the 1 year deal, but it's okay as long as everybody's in place for one season.
People are loving your positivity, Mike Prater. You're getting a lot of comments for the column for your positivity. And Rudy has the response here. He says it's like leap day, comes once every 4 years. You're
that's a good point. From here on out, for the rest of my life, I promise to be the happy, positive guy every time it's leap year. That's our leap day. That's fantastic.
But Dirk Koetter, Mike Prater, we saw the numbers and what he did. And again, part of this, in my opinion, are the facts from talking to some previous coaches on staff and stuff. The Tim Plow offense, we never got to see the Tim Plow offense. We saw the version that he was instructed to run. So I don't think that's necessarily fair to totally rip on Tim Plow when you compare the first part of that season to the last part of that season. I do think that at least needs to be said. With that said, after the 4 games from Tim Plow, to when Dirk Koetter came in, and I believe Dirk Koetter was given a little more autonomy on the offense and kind of to do his thing. If I'm coming back, we're doing it my way, and that's the way it's going to be. And the result was about 10 to 12, I think it was 12 points per game more, or 10 plus points per game more, and then like 150 plus yards per game more. That the numbers really went up once, obviously, Dirk Koetter took over. What do you make of him, I guess, just in this role and what this does for the offense this year with Ashton Genty, with Malachi Nelson, with the talent they've brought in to have Dirk Koetter as the OC?
Well, yeah, the sky's the limit. I mean, it's a dream team, and we'll see how it plays out because dream teams don't always work. But there are so many positives and so many things about this football roster now. There's not a weakness. I mean, what your weakness is your right tackle, I guess, only because you don't know who that is, and they've got 2 or 3 really good tackle positions or tackle prospects they could throw in there, and there's just so much optimism about this offense. Yeah, I would expect Dirk Koetter to go well. I mean, last year I wanted this football team to get to a 30-point scoring average, which they never had done under Andy Avalos. And I think they finished somewhere around 33, 34. I can't remember the exact numbers, but low 30s. And I would expect under Dirk Koetter, let's add a touchdown with the tools that he has and Dirk Koetter a full season and a full off season and a full spring camp. I would have all
40? Can we say 40?
Pushing 40, absolutely. Absolutely. This football team should be averaging 40 points a game. I'll say that right here, right now, as long as the injuries and, don't forget, part of my happy positive column talks about a 15-day window in April when the transfer portal comes up. And, I'm not worried about a guy like Malachi Nelson, but I might be worried about some of his tools, the Chris Marshalls and how it works out. I know he's kind of here on a tryout basis, and, there's always a surprise coming and always a surprise going when it comes to the transfer portal. So that's the 15-day window that they're going to have to really kind of navigate. And because they had to move spring ball week because of the search for an offensive coordinator, that transfer portal window now opens in the final week of spring camp while Boise State's actually going through spring camp. So that'll be kind of interesting to see what happens. But if they can get through that, I mean, the expectations for this offense should be crazy realistic.
Boise says Maurice Jones-Drew won a rushing title under Dirk Koetter in Jacksonville. Genty was already in for a huge year, but man, this is going to be fun. Speaking of running backs, I want to get to the schedule to finish things up here, Mike, but I do want to quickly mention George Holani and get your comment on him. Saturday, right, is the day he'll work out at the Combine. I think some of us were maybe, I don't want to say surprised, but I don't think it was a lock that we thought George Holani would even get a Combine invite. He gets one. He's there. He gets his shot. As we've talked about, as you put in the column, trying to extend that streak, 2008, I believe it is, getting a player drafted every single year. This is a big weekend and a big day on Saturday for George Holani to try to make that happen.
I don't think George Holani gets drafted. I'll say that right now, but I also am kind of tired of doubting George Holani, as we all should. So George Holani is like the cockroach that never goes away, and that's good. He just keeps on plugging away, keeps on surviving, and keeps on getting better. I didn't expect him to go to the Combine. There's no way I expected him to go to the Combine. I expected him to get into some kind of free agent camp, and I still do. So he'll go to the Combine, and he'll be just fine. It's not really a star-studded running back. I mean, there's some really good players in there, and probably the more well-known names aren't the ones that are going to stick out at the end of the Combine or when they get into the draft. I don't think George Holani, and again, part of the column that was just published on BNN talks about George Holani and that third day of the NFL draft. And then Sunday afterwards, I think it's Sunday, April 28th, is when I would expect him to sign a free agent deal. But if he gets drafted, that would be spectacular for Boise State to keep that streak alive and for his chances. But he'll get a chance. He'll be in a camp. Let's see what happens next year and see if George Holani can be a great third down specialist. He catches the ball great out of the backfield. Everybody we've talked to about the Combine this week talks about running backs. And the one thing that really stands out at the Combine, can you be a running back who has the natural ability to catch a football? And George Holani is really good at catching the football. And then some of those peripheral drills that they make the running backs do, catching the ball and working with your hands, I think George Holani is going to shine. So 11 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night is the window, NFL Network. It's an 8-hour window. Running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks all go. The star stuff is going to be about the quarterbacks. The wide receiver stuff is going to be spectacular. The running backs will probably be the third primary focus that day. But George Holani will be on television running the 40-yard dash on Saturday.
Hey, we're about 3 hours away from the Mountain West schedule release, and that's going to be my final question to Mike Prater here in just a second. We'll preview the Mountain West schedule release, but do want to tell you about Lithia Ford of Boise. They got 5 NIL deals with student athletes at Boise State. Check them out. View their inventory online. Do what the Raines family did. We found 2 we liked because we did all the research ahead of time online and went in, test drove them, picked this F-150, and we were on our way in a couple of hours. Highly recommend Lithia Ford of Boise. Get that full inventory of vehicles at lithiafordboise.com. The Blue and Orange store, appreciate them as well. Shirts, jerseys, caps, you name it, you can get it at the Blue and Orange store. And we appreciate Travis Hawks and Company. One of the reasons you're hearing Mike Prater and reading Mike Prater is thanks to the Blue and Orange store. So we appreciate their commitment and their willingness to step up and make it happen and bring Mike Prater in here. Check him out at theblueandorangestore.com. And again, the second floor of the Boise Town Square Mall there next to Pro Image. And Taco Bell, we appreciate them as well. The SON Management, the Nicolason Group, TacoBellWorks.com. Check them out. You need a job, they'll give you free food and half your wages the very next day after your shift. You can't beat that. More information coming. You can get details there at TacoBellWorks.com. Okay, Mike Prater, final 3 or 4 minutes we got here. The Mountain West schedule will be released at 1 o'clock. We know the Georgia Southern game is week 1. We know the Oregon game is week 2. We know the Portland State home game is the 21st, week 4. So one of the early questions, will they have a bye week in week 3, which means no home game till week 4, or will the Mountain West put a home game there in week 3 on the 14th? I'm looking at that. Obviously looking at there is 2 byes this year, so you wonder how those are going to play in. When is the trip to Hawaii versus another game on the schedule? What are you going to be looking for on the schedule here?
Well, yeah, definitely all those things, and certainly that third week is going to be really, really interesting. You know, it won't be as you said, it won't be Washington State or Oregon State because they've got games already scheduled there. So it will be I think it's going to be the bye, but I wouldn't be surprised if they threw in a Mountain West game. They're going to need a bye after going from the East Coast to the West Coast and coming back, and with 2 byes this week or this year on this schedule, I would suspect that the chances of that of being a bye are pretty good. After that, you know, we know that they're going to plug in a whole bunch of Mountain West games, and I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see where Oregon State and Washington State end up. I can't wait to see what that Thanksgiving Day game is. I was doing a little research on the schedule. Since Boise State's been in the Mountain West, they've played every single team in the conference in the last game of the season except for UNLV and Hawaii. And if that's Thanksgiving weekend this year, Boise State plays UNLV and Hawaii on the road this year. And it would be really cool maybe if they assign Boise State, UNLV, or Hawaii, and fans get a road trip on Thanksgiving weekend, either Vegas or Hawaii. I think that'd be cool for fans, but here's the deal with that. You know, if Boise State's going to be placed on Thanksgiving Day weekend, whether it's Black Friday or that Saturday, it's going to be a television game. And Boise State versus Hawaii, bad television. Boise State versus UNLV, I'm not sure UNLV is going to be any good again like they were last year. Maybe that was a one-year blip. We'll see, but it's certainly not going to make for great television. So they're going to have to put a sexier TV game in there, whether it's like a San Diego State or maybe where they drop one of those other non-conference games in there. I don't know, but television will dictate that. It'll be a sexy game for TV, although it'd be kind of cool if they could get that UNLV and Hawaii road trip for fans. I guarantee you at 11 or 1 o'clock today, if Hawaii or UNLV are on there and it's a road trip on Thanksgiving, there'll be a lot of families scrambling for some vacation time at that point. That'll be kind of cool to see for this team.
Yeah, so you mentioned that the road games are we know home and road, we just don't know the dates. The road games are at Hawaii, at UNLV, as you said, at Georgia Southern, at Oregon, and then also at Wyoming and at San Jose State are the road games this year. And then you mentioned the home games, Portland State, Utah State, and then I believe it's Nevada and San Diego State are the conference games, and then they get both Washington State and Oregon State at home as well, as the way that works out, because the Oregon State game, remember, was already supposed to happen. They added in Washington State as part of the agreement, and then remember, you play 8 Mountain West games, but you only play the 7 that count. The other game, Washington State, Oregon State, won't count towards the standings, which will be kind of weird to have those mixed in. And typically Boise State has not had non-conference games later in the season, Mike. I guess you've had the BYU game in there, kind of a rivalry game, but you could be in a situation where late in the season you're playing one of those other Pac-2 teams where it necessarily doesn't count for the standings there. So overall, though, you get a trip to UNL, trip to Vegas, trip to Hawaii, Autzen Stadium at Oregon. I mean, the Georgia Southern game's a weird one getting thrown in there. I know Wyoming's not the best road trip that there is, but any year you get Hawaii and Vegas in the same year, at least for me, for the traveling media members and the fans that go to the games, that's not going to be bad.
No, it's not only it's really fun. That's a really cool schedule, and it's going to be the most difficult schedule, I think, in Boise State football history, and it's going to be the most attractive schedule for Boise State in home schedule in Boise State history. That home schedule is brutal. It's tough. And Jeremiah Dickey has got himself a chore. He's got to sell a lot of season tickets, and I think he will. And then they've got to go off and win some of these games because that home schedule is going to be absolutely brutal. So I think you're on to something. And going back to that Thanksgiving Day weekend and how they'll end up that season, a TV game, if it was Oregon State or Washington State, That's great television. San Diego State's always decent TV, even if San Diego State's not that good. The television networks seem to love San Diego State. I can't think of any other game that would be there. But, you remind me. That's a good reminder that BYU is kind of late some of those years. So let's see what television executives do with that schedule and what they do with it late. But that's something to watch for sure.
Well, that'll be out in about 3 hours. You guys will be all over that at 3 o'clock today on Idaho Sports Talk, 3 to 6 with Bob, Prater, JP, Johnny, the whole gang there. I know you guys are continuing your countdown as well, Mike Prater. What else we got coming up today?
We're going to do our countdown today. Most important football players on the roster. We're going to go a little Andrew Simpson checks in at number 4. We're going to talk about that an awful lot. Mike Walsh is going to join us. Talk about he's the NIL guru at Boise State, who we saw is leaving Boise State to join a local private company in terms of NIL and marketing. So Mike Walsh is going to come on and talk about the rise of popularity of name, image, and likeness in this market and its future and what it can mean for this community and how he plans to impact this community moving forward. So a couple of deals. We'll have some Steelheads conversation. They got a big 3-game homestand this weekend, so all kinds of fun this time of year. It's a good time of year, BJ.
And Mike Walsh is not my guest tomorrow, but he played a hand in my announcement tomorrow. How about that? I'll throw that out there. So 9 a.m. tomorrow. Do not miss Bronco Nation News Live. We have a very cool announcement as Bronco Nation News continues to push the envelope and push things forward in terms of what we're doing. And we'll be making history next week. We'll tell you about it tomorrow at 9 a.m. on Bronco Nation News Live. And again, the schedule comes out at 1. We'll be all over that. They'll be all over it 3 o'clock. Don't miss today's Idaho Sports Talk, 3 o'clock, KTIK 95.3 FM, 1350 AM, the KTIK app, KTIK.com, all the various ways you can find their show. And looking forward to your discussion on that schedule when it comes out today. Mike, appreciate it as always. Thanks for jumping in on a Thursday. Hopefully folks will go read your column at BroncoNationNews.com. Big fun times ahead, as Mike Prater explains. Whether you're a fan of football or basketball, you should be a fan of both with the trajectories of both right now. It's going to be a fun next couple of weeks, months, years following these two programs. So appreciate it, Mike. Thanks, everybody, for checking us out. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you later. Bronco Nation News Live, BroncoNationNews.com.